So today our class is on urinary tract infection. This is an entity which is very important. When you go to the hospital, you will find patients in the emergency, you will find patients in the OPD. They will come to you, they will give complaints about which will be suggestive of urinary tract infection. For your exams, both theory and also practicals and viva questions. A lot of viva questions can be asked from urinary tract infection. So the concept has to be clear and then you have to memorize certain things. But first you have to understand. There are certain terms which is important and is asked in your exams. Like what is complicated UTI? Okay, what is asymptomatic bacteriuria? Okay, so all these terms you have to know very well. What is significant bacteriuria? Okay, these are all in context to this UTI chapter. So today we'll start. First is we'll go through the bacterial causes, the fungal causes and the parasitic causes. Definition of UTI. UTI is defined as a disease caused by microbial invasion of the urinary tract that extends from renal cortex of the kidneys to the urethral meatus. So that is the whole root. In that, if there is infection, we call it the UTI or urinary tract infection. In short, it is UTI. The infection that is affecting any part of the urinary system. Kidneys, when it is affected, we call as pyelonephritis. So you may ask you, what is pyelonephritis? You have to know about what is pyelonephritis. It is affecting the kidneys. Okay. Next is the, if you remember your anatomy class, you have also done the dissection, right? You saw those two kidneys we have two ureters. Okay. And then coming down we have the bladder, urinary bladder, and then there is the urethra. Okay. So that is the whole structure, anatomical structure. If you remember, you can even understand what is upper urinary tract infection and then lower urinary tract infection. Okay. So next is the bladder. If bladder infection is there, we call it cystitis. Okay. So itis, you understand? Inflammation. So every word having a itis behind it means, beside it means what? That is inflammation. Bladder inflammation or bladder infection. First infection happens, then inflammation comes. So that is cystitis. Next is urethra. Okay. Urethra, through the urethra the urine comes out. So that urethra, when it is inflamed or infected, after infection there is inflammation, that is called as urethritis. You have to even pronounce this. You have to talk, or else you will be having like, you cannot pronounce it properly. So make sure, because you have to face your vivas. Okay. So it is urethritis, cystitis, pyelonephritis. Is it clear? So this whole tract, if there is infection, we call it UTI. There are different causes: bacterial, fungal, viral, parasitic. Okay. So now difference between upper UTI and lower UTI. So this is anatomical definition, you can say, or differences between the upper means upper side of the tract. Okay. So obviously it will be involving the kidneys. Okay. So you can see the kidney, upper UTI. Kidneys, when it is inflamed or infected, we call it pyelonephritis. And also the ureters. These two is the upper UTI. Is it clear? Kidney involvement and the ureter involvement is the upper UTI. Next is the lower UTI. In this lower we have the bladder, urinary bladder and the urethra. So these are the lower UTI. So anatomical difference. Next, Lower UTI and upper UTI. Let us see what are the symptoms in these two. In lower UTI, you get symptoms like dysuria. What is the meaning of dys? You have done terminology, right? Dys means what? Difficulty, which is not okay. Difficulty in urination, that is dysuria. Okay, dysuria. And then urgency. There is urgency means you want to urinate, you just passed or voided. We call it voiding urine, okay? Medical term. You voided the urine few minutes back, again you have an urgency to go again. Because as there is infection inside, there is some injury also of the tract. So you are not able to evacuate sufficiently, and then you have obviously, you will again try to, it's like again you want to pass the urine. So there is urgency, you want to go, just you cannot hold it. There's a patient will come and tell you like that. He will not say urgency, but he will explain in his own words that I want to go pass urine or void urine every now and then. I have a pain. So this is what, I have difficulty in urination. This is what are the symptoms of the lower UTI. This is most of the cases of UTI, about 80% cases or even 90% you will get lower UTI. Okay, and rest percent, about 10% of cases you will get about of the upper UTI. Upper UTI has to be investigated very well. You have to ask for urine culture, both you have to ask for urine culture, but in upper UTI you have to go for other investigations like imaging. Okay, ultrasonography you have to do, another imaging, this you have to go for this. So let us see again the symptoms. This is the more common. Okay, ascending route of spread. Now you have to know about these two things. One is ascending, you understand ascending? Going from bottom to top, ascending, and descending coming from up to down, right? So in this lower UTI, you have ascending infection. What is this? Ascending, going from lower to the top. So from where does it go? From where does the bacteria enter? That is a question. The bacteria is entering from, we have a gut, microbial flora, our GIT, all of you know, right? So we have got a gut microbial flora, and that is important for our survival. Okay, so this microbial flora, it is supposed to remain in the gut, then it is okay. Okay, but if it enters in any other places where it is supposed not to be, it causes problem. Okay, so unfortunately in the females, when again you go to the anatomy, the female urethra is very short compared to the male urethra. So these issues we have UTI more in the females. So if it is not, if it may be due to different reasons, it may be due to not taking proper hygiene while cleaning yourself, where you are not knowing how to clean. So the stool or the gut flora from the which you pass in the stool, that may enter in the urethra. So that is one type of ascending infection. Or it may be in the hospital when he is introducing, a patient has come now, he will get operation done, you need to put in catheter. Okay, so then while introducing the catheter, you have not taken proper aseptic measures. The doctor who was introducing the catheter doesn't know the proper sterile techniques, and he has introduced some infection while he is putting the catheter. Okay, so those are the ways how this UTI can happen to the females, and many other reasons. And over that, if a person has immunosuppression, if he is immunocompromised, then this bacterial infection again flares up. So upper UTI, we have the kidneys and the ureter. So we are talking now before that about the lower UTI. Now the upper UTI is kidney and the ureter. So in this we have some systemic manifestations also. You will get fever. These are the differences you should know. In upper UTI, the patient may complain of fever or vomiting and abdominal pain, both ascending and descending infections can cause, and less, but it is very less common. So upper UTI, even when it is ascending infection, if a patient is suffering from UTI and the patient, many times it happens, patient doesn't take any treatment. Patient doesn't say, maybe young girl, she is ashamed, she doesn't want to say, she thinks, okay, this is fine, I'm okay, I'm okay, it will go, this, that. But then what happens? Repeated infection, what will happen? The bacteria will climb up till the bladder and then the kidneys, and even it may cause pyelonephritis. It can cause upper UTI. Okay, so this is some example I have given you. Another one is due to hematogenous, maybe from the blood, patient is having infection in the blood, and that infection ultimately reaches the kidneys. So that also descending infection from systemic disc coming. In those patients, usually you will get the patient will have fever. Okay, a systemic involvement is also there. Patient will have fever, patient will have vomiting also, and nausea, abdominal pain. In this lower UTI cases, if your patient is having cystitis, one very good thing because the patient is, suppose the patient is lying down, he is not able to pass urine and all, how will you understand he is having really problem or not? Okay, he is not complaining. Sometimes if you do little bit of suprapubic tenderness, we call, okay, you just touch the upper part of the pubis, that suprapubic, if you just touch it there, then you will say, okay, I am just paining. So that is called as suprapubic tenderness. That is also an important thing you should know. Now the pathogenesis in ascending route, most common due to sexual intercourse, catheterization, bacterial adhesions by fimbria ascending towards bladder cause cystitis, towards the ureter and kidneys cause pyelonephritis, tubular obstruction and interstitial nephritis. These may even cause tubular obstructions. All the tubules will be maybe obstruction, and interstitial nephritis, where the kidneys are involved, all the parts of the kidneys are involved. The common infections which are the commonest, remember this is MCQ question, commonest bacteria which causes urinary tract infection, both ascending and descending, is E. coli. Okay, so everybody is done with E. coli. Remember, this will be asked. E. coli, Escherichia coli. Okay. Then other common are enterococci, most common. These two are the most common. These both of them are found in our GIT. Okay, our own fecal flora. Okay. Next is descending route, hematogenous spread, what I was talking few minutes back, due to bacteremia, and 5% of the total UTI is the descending route. And then Staphylococcus aureus, Salmonella, Mycobacterium, tuberculosis, Leptospira. These are very, very less, you don't get very often. So what happens is, suppose a patient is coming to you with UTI, you will first take a sample for the culture. Okay, you have to do a culture, and then you will see that, okay, he is having bacterial infection and you are getting the patient treated. But it may also happen patient is having the symptoms, but you are not able to isolate any bacteria. You understand? Then you have to think of something else, whether there is viral causes, whether there is tuberculosis causes, all those things. You have to think, like other mycobacterium causes are there, okay, or Leptospira, or viral, fungal, okay, maybe parasitic. So first investigation we do is the culture for bacteria. Okay. Now risk factors. Some predisposing factors or risk factors are also important. No one should talk in the class. Female gender. Number one risk factor. Females are much more prone to urinary tract infection because of the short urethra. Okay. Then diabetes mellitus. This is another very common. People with diabetes mellitus will come with UTI very often. They have been treated, again they will have. Okay, this is due to the diabetes, a predisposing factor. Catheterization. If some patients has to be kept catheterized for long, maybe 1 month, 2 months. Okay, So those patients are also having a nidus of infections. What happens is when the catheter is introduced, maybe through the introduction it has entered, or it is there and it is a foreign body after all, the catheter. Okay. Nowadays we have got silicone catheters which are much better, which has less infection chances. But then with the catheter, what happens? Along the side of the catheter, there is a slime layer is formed. Sometimes bacteria, some few bacteria form slime layer. Okay, those slime layer is very difficult. Even you are treating with antibiotics, it's very difficult for the antibiotics to act on those bacteria which is already formed a slime layer. So in that case, what you do is we just remove the catheter and then again you have to introduce a fresh catheter. So this is what is done in the hospital also. Or if there is immunosuppression, obviously immunosuppression patients, they don't have their our body, whatever antibiotic we are taking, after all our immune system has to fight against those bacteria, right? So, but if his immune system is not competent, so then again this immunosuppression patients, like maybe for example kidney transplant patients, okay, or it may be liver transplant patient who is on immunosuppression, or any other transplant patients for that matter. Then urinary obstruction. If in the whole tract there is an obstruction, for example the ureter is having an obstruction, so obviously there will be collection of the urine is not able to pass out, they will have all the other features, then it becomes again complicated UTI. We have two types of UTI, one is complicated UTI, another is uncomplicated UTI. If there is any structural problem in the whole tract, then it is complicated UTI. Okay. So, okay, now let us see host defense mechanism. Our human body is devised in such a way, we have many host defense mechanisms, right? That you have read even in your immunology chapter. So let us see about our urinary tract, how it is functioning. What are the urinary factors? Our urine is little bit acidic. Bacterial pH, what is the normal bacterial pH? Most of the bacteria, Enterobacteriaceae, the pH is around 7, okay, it's a neutral pH. But this urine, our urine is around pH 5 to 8, like little bit of acidic. Usually it remains around 6 is the pH. So it is little bit acidic pH. So what happens is the bacteria is not able to survive for long. You understand? So that is our own host defense mechanism. So next is high urine osmolarity. Urine inhibition of bacterial adhesions, urinary inhibition, like the urine passes away. Usually what you say in when you are having urinary tract infection, it is very much advisable to drink lot of water. So more water you take, it will be flushed away. So that is also there. Mechanical flushing by the urine flow. Next, mucosal factors, uroepithelial secretion of cytokines induced by the lipopolysaccharides of the bacteria. Then we have mucosal IgA prevent attachment, there's immunoglobulin which also prevents the attachment. TAM Horsfall proteins, these are the glycoproteins secreted by epithelium of the kidneys which will help in the anti-adherence factors. Okay, so there are certain factors which will also not allow to adhere the bacteria to the epithelium. Then in men, they have got zinc in the prostatic secretions, which is also a defensive mechanism, and also man has got long urethra. So usually you will not find, it's very common in men, it's very less, okay, rare circumstances. But if a male patient you get, you have to investigate him thoroughly. Okay, if a male patient comes with UTI, you have to investigate him thoroughly. Maybe you have to do an USG, whether there is a renal stone lying there, the nidus is there, there is a renal calculi, or there is a stricture, there is an anatomical problem. You have to find out by the ultrasonography and other tests. Okay, so this is all about the host defense mechanism. Now clinical manifestations, lower UTI and upper UTI. These are clinical manifestations are asymptomatic lower UTI. Few patients, as I was telling you, they will not realize that they are having urinary tract infection also. They are asymptomatic, we call them. Bacteriuria, then you have cystitis, urethritis, acute urethral syndrome. This is all below from the bladder onwards. Okay. Then upper UTI is pyelonephritis, urethritis, perinephric abscess. Even there can be pus collection around the kidneys, and also renal abscess. Okay, renal abscess. Then renal tuberculosis. And all involvement is the upper UTI. Then immunological sequelae may be post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. That will go again. Now this lower UTI asymptomatic bacteriuria. This is asked in your exam sometimes. What is asymptomatic bacteriuria? Okay. So the patient may not be coming to you. He may have come for something else, some other problem, and you have done a urine culture and an RE, and you are finding there is colony count is even more than 10⁵ CFU, which is significant. But the patient has not come for any urinary symptoms. She doesn't have any problem. She is not complaining. So what are the cases and when to treat those patients? You have to know. You understand? Whether to treat or not. Treat in pregnant women. If she is a pregnant woman, you treat. Before any urological procedures, if you are doing any procedures urology related, then you have to treat. Renal transplant patients, you also have to treat. Do not treat in elderly patients or in diabetic patients or in catheterized patients unless symptomatic. Okay? Is it clear to you all? In catheter patients, unless symptomatic, you don't treat, because what happens is this patient, suppose you have put in catheter, it is lying there, maybe some bacteria are around there, so but it's not causing any harm. So the clinician has to decide. The report will come to you, but you have to decide whether his TC count is high, whether he is having fever, whether he is having other infections, other symptoms related to the infection, or the patient is showing any systemic signs. Okay, so the doctor has to decide. So this is the asymptomatic bacteriuria, where we come across patients usually when they are coming for screening, or maybe some other reasons the patient is coming. You have to know when to treat the patient. Okay. Cystitis is infection of bladder, dysuria, burning micturition, and also frequency, urgency, suprapubic pain, hematuria, cloudy urine, and bad odor, no systemic involvement. Okay. So what happens in cystitis? Cystitis is the bladder involvement. In this you will get all dysuria, urgency, and frequency of urination. And even in cystitis you may also get what? Blood in urine. So if suppose your this E. coli, it has got a multiplication time of 20 minutes. Suppose you have an infection, and in the morning you had, maybe 2 days or 3 days has passed, and you didn't go to the doctor, you didn't take any antibiotics for that, not by your own, obviously, after getting the sensitivity done. Okay. And so you'll end up with, you may see there is blood coming in urine. Okay. And you do an RE, routine examination of the urine, you see there is RBCs, or even you may see that your color of the urine is becoming a little bit of reddish. So that is in cystitis is also seen. And bad odor, no systemic symptoms, but you may not have fever and all. Sometimes you may get fever too. So this is what is the cystitis. Acute urethral syndrome. This is acute, the urethra, you understand. So right from the words you can make out what is it. A condition with symptoms of lower UTI, but no significant bacteriuria on routine culture, pyuria present. Pyuria means pus in urine or WBC in urine, raised. Okay, caused by usual agents of UTI, gonococci, chlamydia, herpes simplex, etc. may also be there. So gonococci is again it will be taught in your STD, okay, and also chlamydia and herpes simplex. This is a virus. So acute urethral syndrome also may happen. To some patients may come with that. Upper UTI in pyelonephritis, inflammation of the kidney parenchyma. So it is all the involvement of the kidneys, parenchyma, the calyces if you remember, and the renal pelvis. Systemic manifestation will be there. There will be fever, flank pain and vomiting. Lower tract system may be present. Why there will be vomiting? Because our urinary system is devised in such a way to take out the waste products, right? So if the waste is not going out, then obviously the toxins will be all metabolites are all getting, the urea, creatinine, everything will also rise in your blood. So that's how they also will be showing that patient will be having vomiting, nausea, fever, all those conditions. So pyelonephritis will definitely give a systemic involvement. Okay, patient will come and talk about he's having fever, having vomiting, nausea, flank pains, okay, and all other symptoms, and obviously he'll have to investigate properly. This is the pyelonephritis. I've tried to show you the normal kidney and the pyelonephritis kidney. If you remember, this is the ureter, okay, the whole cortex of the kidney, you can see outer side, the cortex, and these are the renal pyramids, okay, and we have got the major calyces and the renal pelvis. So the urine is filtered here and then is coming here, collected and goes to the ureter. So here there can be pus collection here, you can be inflammation and also scarring of the kidney. Okay, atrophy of the cortex. So in pyelonephritis. So it's very important that UTI has to be taken care. It's not that you should not handle with care. You should see the doctor, okay? Or else you will end up with kidney problems or nephritis, okay, or pyelonephritis. Okay. Now I was talking about complicated UTI. Occurs in males, pregnant women, patients with indwelling catheter, diabetes, kidney stones, any other structural problems, or those who are immunocompromised, okay, immunocompromised patients. Only thing is that in these patients you have to treat, usually for UTI you get a treatment with antibiotics for about 7 days, okay. You have to complete the whole course of antibiotics. But in this complicated UTI cases, you have to do at least treatment for 14 days, maybe more than that also, okay. And you have to find out the cause. If there is any stricture, if there is any calculus, all those causes you have to find out, okay. Maybe if patients comes to you and you have to treat the diabetes, this blood glucose level has to be controlled, other things also has to be taken care. Lab diagnosis, urine culture sensitivity and imaging, okay. And this patient has to basically go for treatment for at least for 14 days. Now coming to lab diagnosis. So after seeing all those syndromes, what is complicated UTI, what is asymptomatic bacteria, and also what is upper UTI, what is lower UTI, now we come to lab diagnosis. Sample collection. Patient, imagine when you think about lab diagnosis, when you are talking about in the Viva, usually we ask about lab diagnosis. Imagine a patient and then you talk, it will become easy. Patient comes to you, what sample you have to take? First of all, that should be your approach. From that sample, what you can do, okay? So, first of all is the urine. Now, there is some special instructions for this sample collection. In microbiology, you have got sample collection instructions, okay? And that is asked in the exam in the Vivas. For UTI, for urinary tract infection, you have a sample collection instruction. We need usually what happens, the patient comes to you, okay, in the OPD, and it's better to have a morning sample, and it has to be clean, catch, midstream urine. Remember these words? Clean, catch, midstream urine. Every word has got important. Clean, catch, okay, midstream. What is the meaning of midstream? So little bit of urine has to be passed first, and then the middle part of the urine you have to take. Usually you have to take in a sterile container which you are taking from the lab, okay. So then if the patient has to close that container and he has to keep it in a cool place, preferably at 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, It can be your refrigerator door, okay, till it reaches the lab. And it's best or desirable to reach the lab as soon as possible. Maybe half an hour, 1 hour, but you never know. It may be too much remote. So those are the certain conditions. If he is in a remote stage, remote place, then you have to carry the urine in at least with a ice bag. Okay. So all those instructions are important. Why? Why? Because we don't want the urine to deteriorate or the bacteria to multiply when it is sitting outside. We want the colony count, we want the bacterial count that is there in the patient's urine, not when it is multiplying outside also. You understand? So because we are doing colony count is so 10 to the 5 or more is significant. Okay, so that is maybe few bacteria are there, you put it under the sun when he is bringing in a scooter. I know one patient it happened. So I asked him what happened. He said, I don't have much problems, but I just gave my urine. So what happened to you? He says, okay, when I came there, I did some shopping, the urine was lying in the scooter, and then I came and gave it to the lab. Patient doesn't know all those things. Okay, so then I asked for a repeat sample. That is the best thing to do. Then you give again an instruction. No, not like that. You do like this. Or sometimes it happens, patient doesn't clean her or his genitals. You have to clean it with water, fresh water, good water, and then bring it. And then also you may get the normal commensals. You understand? So we don't want that. We want from the urine. We don't want the commensals or the vaginal flora. Okay. So these instructions in microbiology makes a big difference, because until unless you have a good sample of urine, you will not be able to isolate the bacteria properly. You may be isolating a commensal, and the patient is not getting treatment, and you have failed as a doctor. The patient is having repeated infection. Okay, doctor, इस doctor को तो बदल देते हैं. It's not good. We'll go to another doctor. You understand? So these things are important. So CCMSU morning sample preferred. Suprapubic aspiration. Sometimes what happens, the patient is not able to void in case of patient is in coma. Okay. So how his sphincters are not working anymore, right? So then you have to do a suprapubic aspiration. Okay. And then catheter specimen also be taken. So you have to know how to take catheter specimen also. If a patient is on catheter, so you don't take the sample. Have you seen patients on catheter or not? Okay. So there are urine bags which is collected. You never take urine from that urine bag. Is it clear to all? Never from the urine bag. You don't want a collected urine in a fresh sample. So it is from the the catheter. You have to first clamp the distal part and then take with the syringe. Okay, you have to take from there. So that to know when you do your clinics, you will be taught, I think so. So there's catheter urine. Clamp distally and disinfect the tube. You have to disinfect the tube and take with syringe. Never from Euro bag. Okay. Next comes transport. I already told about it. Transport is as soon as possible, and immediately if delay, put in 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Okay. Next is direct examination. This is very important part. This will be asked in your exam, viva, anywhere. So try to understand. What you do? First the sample has come to you. Is there. Now what do? The best is to basically start with the culture, because we don't want to contaminate the urine. Do you understand? We do not want to contaminate the urine. You have seen those plates? What? Culture medias? Have you seen or not? The culture medias are there. From there you will take the culture medias. What culture media we take for urine sample? Can anyone say? Clay agar. And also we have another high chrome, remember this, high chrome UTI agar. This is also meant for urine, where it will also show there are some indicators, colorful indicators are there, so you can even identify or differentiate the bacteria in that plate according to the colors. You understand? Like E. coli will be showing a pink color, all those you can see. Or if you don't have those selective medias or these medias, you can even go for McConkey's agar. Is it clear? McConkey's agar also you can go. So then after plating in that media with the loop has to be again, you never do it with a straight wire, it is with the loop. Okay, because you want to do the colony count. So there is a standardized loop diameter which you have to use, and once it is done, next what you do is you put in the incubator. Okay, inoculation streaking ho gaya, put in the incubator, and then you have the rest of the urine. In that urine you will do the what? What else? Bolo? Rest of the urine what will you do? You will do the urine routine examination. In routine examination, we usually have to put a dipstick. Have you seen those? You have to use the dipstick, which it will be, there are different analytes in that dipstick. You have got the specific gravity, you have got blood, you have got this WBC's counts, or even what is it, RBC, WBC, then bilirubin, protein, sugar, everything is there. So there you will do the dipstick. Take the reading, make a chart, dipstick result is this. Okay. Nitrite is a very important finding. Urine, if you have got E. coli, then there will be nitrite production. So nitrite will show positive. If there is WBC more, which is usually in UTI, it will show WBC positive. Those are the positive findings. Next what you do? Urinary, this dipstick is done. Next you will go for microscopy. So you will centrifuge the urine and take the sediment, and then you will put under the microscope on your slide and a cover slip. No staining. That is under which X? First. If you don't stain, you see under what X? Magnification. 10x, 40x, what X? Stool case में देखा था 40x. So for RBCs and WBCs, you want to see whether your urine is having WBC or RBC or not, and you have to note it down whether there is bacteria or not, they are moving or not in the urine. That you see under the microscope. Understood? Then you note it down. These are the findings. And then next day you come and find out the plate, get the plate of the incubation from the incubator, and there you see the growth, whether there is growth. You correlate your findings with the bacteria is there or not, with where the nitrate was there, correlate the findings, and you go for next is identification of the bacteria. E. coli you have already read, how to do the identification, all those steps. Then you go for the antibiotic sensitivity pattern. Are you getting me, all of you? Huh? Then you do the AST. Where do you do the AST, in which media? By now you should all be able to answer. Muller-Hinton agar, we do the AST, right? We look for which particular antibiotic you want to give to the patient. What is the sensitivity pattern? So that is the story. Then you get the findings and make a report. So this is all I'll be talking. Wet mount examination, pus cells, WBC, normal urine. Usually 2 to 3 or 5 is admissible. But if it is more than 5, then it's WBC, you have to consider the patient has some infection. Okay? So more than 5 or 10, high power field is significant. Pyuria. Bacteriuria is presence of bacteria. Nitrite reduction test. Please remember this test. Nitrite positive. So this you will get as a case scenario. Do you get it? You will get a case scenario. This patient with urine has come with nitrate positive, blah blah, fever, this. You understand? So that's how you will get a clue. Nitrate positive. This is very important. So remember this. Nitrate positive and pus cells this much, or there is RBCs in the urine. So you can think about the urinary tract infection. Nitrate reduction test, E. coli usually gives nitrate positive and few more bacteria. Gram stain, if you do a gram stain of the urine, even you can get more than pyelonephritis if it is in the kidney infection. Even more than one bacteria per oil immersion field is also significant. Obviously, if the kidneys are involved, even one bacteria is also important. Next is culture, ID and AST. Culture media is clad, McConkey's, Hychrome, UTI, agar, blood agar. You have to know all the medias, okay? Then you have colony count. And this is colony count has to be done, and then criteria is the CAST criteria. Remember this criteria. Sample type, significant colony count in clean catch midstream urine more than equal to 10⁵ is called as significant bacteriuria. Okay. So this will be asked in your exam, significant bacteriuria. Symptomatic patients, but in case you have a patient who is admitted in your hospital and he is having some symptoms, even lesser than 10⁵ also the doctor or the clinicians may consider to be treating the patient. Do you get it? So it all depends on the clinician when he's saying, okay, this count is there, but I have to treat because he is having other symptoms. So like that, symptomatic patients 10⁵ to 4 also may be significant. Catheter specimen 10⁵ to 3 also may be significant in symptomatic cases. Okay, in symptomatic, remember this. There should be additional symptoms. Suprapubic aspiration, any growth is significant. Obviously, when you're taking from the bladder, so any growth is significant. Even one colony is also significant. It's not coming through the whole tract. Quantitative culture, each colony corresponds to one bacterium in urine sample counted. Standardized loop technique is done. Pour plate methods are other types. Colony appearance, lactose fermenters, APS pink, non-lactose fermenters pale. All this you have already done for your E. coli. You know those lactose producers will produce pink color colonies in your McConkey's agar. Later you do Gram-Stain biochemical test to identify in conventional method. Lawn culture of the incubated broth done on Muller-Hinton agar for Kirby bird disease diffusion. And next is the automated Vitek or Malditoff. Okay. Now we go for, this is summary, what I told you a few minutes back. The urine is here with all the different methods of collection. Voided urine, suprapubic aspiration, or from the catheter. Urine sample is collected. This urine sample, first you have to do is do the culture, plating, okay, or the inoculation. We call it what? Inoculation. And then you do the dipsticks, where you will find dipstick test, where you will find the WBCs, whether it is there, nitrite, blood showing. Then you do the microscopic analysis, that is staining also you can do, or you may do a wet mount preparation. Okay. So this is what we do for the conventional method. After this part, we will do the even biochemical tests to identify the bacteria and the AST. Now, another method nowadays is done is to expedite the, for culture at least 72 hours is required for the sensitivity report. But if you want to expedite the results, you want to give a better result, faster result and more precise result. You want to give the MICs, minimum inhibitory concentration of the drug. The better tests are nowadays available, that is the better than the conventional method, that is the including the Vitek method. Okay. So I work on a Vitek machine, so I can tell you n number of patients who I have given the report and they are treated, they are already, they have gone home and they are very well, because nowadays we are again struggling with lot of multi-drug resistant cases. So if anyone has got UTI, your patient, you have to write, if you are thinking clinical symptoms, you have to write a culture test, not only that urinary. Okay, always CS and sensitivity, culture sensitivity is done, because you have to keep in mind whatever antibiotic I am giving, maybe it is not working. But for urine culture, urine what happens is that patient, you go to the hospital, patient comes to you, then what you do is you find that this patient is telling I am having urgency, this pain in micturition. You have to first take the urine sample. Take the sample, send it to the lab, then you give him the antibiotic. You have to start with an antibiotic because the culture will take some time to come. Till then, the bacteria will multiply so fast that he may land up with hematuria. You understand? So, you don't want to say that. So, you start an antibiotic, but then you follow up. Follow up, see the culture report. If the culture report is sensitive or not. If it is not matching with what you have given, then you have to change the antibiotic. Is it clear to all? So this is the automated Vitec 2 compact machine which we get, and hopefully we'll get one here also. And this is the card. This is the card where we look for identification. So there are two cards which is used. One card is for identification and one card is for AST. Okay. So little bit about how do we do it. You must be curious about how we do it. So once you get the growth from the plate, we have to make a broth. So that broth has to be charged in those cards. Those cards are automatically read according to different databases is there. So standardized inoculum is prepared from the patient sample, often using a Densitec to ensure correct turbidity. And McFarland standard, you remember this, typically 0.5 McFarland standard is there. There is a standard of turbidity, how much you want the colony growth. Get it? That is called as the McFarland standard. It's asked in your exam sometimes. 0.5. So then the cards are automatically filled via the unique vacuum filler. So you can see here. So this is the standard turbidity you have done with the colony, and this is a probe sort of thing coming inside where it will be sucking. By vacuum it will be sucking all the broth. Okay. So the bacteria is now inside the card. So then what happens is the system reads the cards every 15 minutes using advanced colorimetric technology, tracking growth of biochemical reactions at multiple wavelengths. So the biochemical reactions which we do in our conventional method outside, remember this urease, citrate, so many biochemical tests, do you remember? Those all happens inside this card, okay, inside the system. And then Vitec software compares these reaction patterns against an expansive database of over 100,000 references to identify the specific bacteria or yeast. So they have got a database inside the machine, so it will compare, okay, this is E. coli is indole positive, like that it will be comparing and giving you a result. Specific bacteria even to the species level it will give you. And then similarly another card you have to charge for the, once it is done you have to do for the AST also. Determine the minimum inhibitory concentration to classify the organisms as susceptible, intermediate and resistant. So the result you will get as susceptible, intermediate and resistant. Susceptible is what you will be giving to the patient for treatment. Now we have the etiological agents of UTI. E. coli, Escherichia coli, okay, which already spoke 90%, 80 to 90%. Klebsiella pneumoniae, Proteus species, and then we have got, this question is asked sometimes to you. This is a specific stone which is related, this is a calculi, renal calculi. There is the struvite stones. These are related to Proteus mirabilis is an infection, is a bacteria. So this is a mechanism which this stone formation happens usually in a patient who is having this Proteus mirabilis infection. Proteus mirabilis tends to produce a lot of urease. Okay, this is an enzyme urease which makes the urine alkaline and favorable for the stone formation. So these stones are usually magnesium ammonium phosphate stones. Remember these terms. Okay. Biofilm formation also happens due to this Proteus bacteria, and which helps for the stone formation better. Pseudomonas aeruginosa is another bacteria, Morganella morgani. We have Enterococcus faecalis, and then we have Staphylococcus saprophyticus. So all those bacteria which I named, you need to know them. Okay, you need to know the bacteria will be asked to you. What are the etiological agents of UTI? Okay. Next is renal tuberculosis. Renal tuberculosis is basically secondary to the pulmonary TB. Okay, you understand? Even a patient, if he comes, you see that you are giving antibiotics, लेकिन उसको कोई काम नहीं हो रहा, antibiotics is not getting treated. You should look for whether there is renal tuberculosis or not. Okay, about 10 to 15% of extrapulmonary TB may happen this renal tuberculosis. Symptoms will also almost be the same, but sterile pyuria. Sterile pyuria means no bacteria in the urine, okay, and pus cells present but no bacteria in culture. You go for the TB culture, that is Alzheimeria growth, and also the midget culture, and radiological investigations like the CT and the MRI. This is an entity called as post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, which you need to know. Okay, this particular strain of streptococci, which is called as please mind here, this streptococcal group A, B, beta hemolytic streptococci. You have to know this bacteria. Okay, this causes the post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. What happens is in the children, usually they have a skin infection which is called as impetigo. Usually 2 to 6 weeks later, that may show a post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis where the kidneys are involved. Do you get it? And in adults, it may be like pharyngitis, the strep throat we call. So you need to treat the streptococcal infection if a patient is having, because it may ultimately, if it is not treated, it will end up with non-suppurative sequelae of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Okay, this strain you have to remember. You asked in exams. In these patients, we go for ASO titer, which is usually raised more than 200. Next is renal abscess and perinephric abscess. Okay, these are the abscesses which will be found in the renal parenchyma and perinephric space, secondary to UTI, pre-existing renal stones. You have to find out whether there is renal stones, and you have to drain the pus, the pus in the kidneys, which you saw. You have to drain the pus and then give the antibiotics. So, viral infection of the urinary tract. There are certain viral infections which you need to know at least the names. The BK virus, adenovirus, and the cytomegalovirus. Schistosoma hematobium, I think has been already taught to you or not. This is a blood fluke which is or trematode, which usually has got two hosts. One is the human host, another is the basically human definitive host, freshwater snails. Okay, the freshwater snails are the intermediate host. So what happens is the Cercaria larva, there is a larva which enters the human skin penetration, and then it multiplies inside the portal circulation. It becomes an adult form. Okay, the larva stage goes into adult form in the portal circulation. Ultimately, they reach the venous plexus and undergo fertilization, produce eggs, and these eggs are also characteristics which you need to know is that these eggs will pass in the urine, and these eggs, lab diagnosis, eggs with terminal spine. Okay, terminal spine in the urine. See, in microbiology, different bacteria, different parasites has got some identifying features. You have to know that. So this is spine, it has got a terminal spine, this spiked, little bit spiked to the terminal, and this particular, eggs are characteristics of Schistosoma hematobium, and that is secreted in the urine, and that goes in the snail. So the life cycle continues. So here we do is basically antigen in serum we look for, and Falcon assay screening by the ELISA, antibody detection for epidemiological purpose. Okay, antibody, if you want to see in this community they are having Schistosoma hematobium or not, you have to look for the antibody. Okay, so the treatment is with praziquantel. Another one is parasitic infections are Trichomonas vaginalis and filariasis. Okay, Trichomonas vaginalis will also be taken in your STI class, which is also an STD. Okay, these are very actively motile and flagellates parasites. Filariasis, this caused by the parasite called as Wisteria bankrupti, and other parasites are like Giardia lamblia, Enteromoeba histolytica, Enterovirus vermicularius, or the pinworms, which are already taught to you. Last slide is Candida species, is the fungal cause. Okay, but again Candida, you have to remember that this can also be a commensal vaginal flora, normal vaginal flora. Okay, so if it is a normal vaginal flora, you have to take the sample properly, that is important. So treatment not recommended for asymptomatic patients. Okay, but if you are getting isolating Candida in symptomatic patients, you have to treat them. Another strain is Candida auris, which we always have to treat, depends on the strain. Okay, treatment recommended for symptomatic cystitis, pyelonephritis, high risk disseminated infection, neutropenic or immunosuppressed patients, critically ill patients, low birth weight infants, urologic manipulation patients, or maybe the renal transplant patients. Fluconazole for 14 days, or you have to do an antifungal sensitivity test to find out which particular fungus is sensitive, because these days we have been getting multi-drug resistant this fungus, candidas. Okay, so here ends the slide.